Anna had always thought of herself as someone who could handle quiet moments alone. Life had its rhythms: her work, her home, her husband, Mark, and his son Josh, who had come into her life 3 years ago. Josh wasn't her own child, but over time she had grown fond of him. He was polite, smart, and funny in ways that made the house feel lighter. Still, life with a blended family wasn't always easy. There were walls to navigate, boundaries to respect, and unspoken rules that everyone seemed to follow except on rare occasions. That Friday evening, Anna left work early. Rain had started to fall just as she drove through the city streets, mist curling against the windshield. She had planned to surprise Mark, maybe make him a cup of tea and relax after a long week. The thought of curling up in her home, feeling safe and warm, made her smile. What she hadn't expected was how quiet the house would feel when she arrived. She stepped inside, shaking off her umbrella, and immediately noticed the silence. Usually, Josh would be laughing in the living room, or Mark would be calling out from the kitchen. But tonight, the only sound was the gentle patter of rain against the windows. Anna's heart skipped a little. Something felt different, though she couldn't say what. Maybe they're just in the guest room, she thought. It wasn't unusual for Josh to retreat there when he was working on a school project or sketching. Anna's steps were quiet as she moved down the hallway. She paused at the door of the guest bedroom, noticing it was slightly open. A small, almost careless detail, but it caught her attention immediately. Anna had always knocked before entering. That was a rule in their house, a simple courtesy that kept everyone comfortable. Yet, for some reason, she didn't. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the soft pull of something she didn't understand. She pushed the door gently, enough to slip inside. The room was dimly lit by a desk lamp. Papers were scattered on the floor, notebooks open, and a pencil rolled lazily near Josh's hand. He was sitting cross-legged, completely absorbed in his sketching. Anna had always noticed him, in the background of her life, as her stepson, as a boy growing into a young man. But now, seeing him like this, focused, quiet, unaware of her presence, something stirred within her. She had to remind herself to breathe, because the moment felt unexpectedly intimate. Josh looked up suddenly. "Oh, you're home early," he said softly, a hint of surprise in his voice. He didn't seem embarrassed or awkward. He just blinked at her with that easy, boyish openness that made her feel unexpectedly tender toward him. "I didn't mean to intrude," Anna replied, her voice quieter than usual. "I just thought I'd come in." Josh shrugged, giving a small smile. "It's fine. I forgot to lock the door anyway. Guess that makes me a terrible stepkid?" Anna chuckled softly. There was something about the casualness of the remark, the lightness in his tone, that made the tension in her chest loosen a bit. She realized she had been holding her breath without noticing. But even as they laughed, she felt a strange tug in her heart. A subtle shift she couldn't yet define. She stepped closer, instinctively wanting to see what he had been working on. Josh's sketches were detailed, careful, full of life. He had a way of seeing the world that was different from hers, but somehow it drew her in. She studied the lines, nodding slightly, praising his effort without even thinking about it. "You're really good at this," she said. "I didn't know you liked to draw so much." Josh shrugged again, a faint blush on his cheeks. "I do, sometimes. Helps me think. Helps me not feel so stuck, you know." Anna nodded. She did know. That feeling of being stuck, of longing for something beyond what life offered day to day, was familiar. She had been trying to make her marriage work, to keep the house together, to be a good stepmother and wife. Yet lately it all felt like a routine, like she was moving through life without really living. Seeing Josh in this moment, honest and unguarded, reminded her of a different kind of connection she had been missing. They talked quietly, about simple things at first school, sketches, the weather. The rain outside mirrored the rhythm of their conversation, a soft background that made the room feel like a separate world. Anna noticed little things she hadn't before. The way Josh's hair fell across his forehead, the gentle tilt of his head when he focused, the small smiles that appeared unprompted. She felt drawn to him, not in an improper way, but in a way that made her aware of her own loneliness and longing. After a few minutes, she realized she had lingered far longer than she intended. Her steps took her toward the door, but she paused, unsure of whether to say more. Josh looked up again, and their eyes met, lingering just slightly longer than usual. Anna felt her heart catch, a quiet ache she hadn't expected. "I should go," she murmured. "I don't want to distract you from your work." Josh shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "No, it's fine. I like having someone to talk to." Anna's chest tightened. She wanted to say more, to express something deeper, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she offered a soft nod and stepped into the hallway. The rain had grown heavier, drumming against the roof and the windows, echoing the confusion and tenderness inside her. She walked toward the living room, her mind spinning with feelings she didn't fully understand. Over the next few days, Anna couldn't stop thinking about that moment. It wasn't about anything inappropriate. There had been no touching, no romantic gestures, but something in the quiet glance. The shared attention had awakened a yearning she hadn't felt in years. Her life with Mark had become predictable, sometimes comfortable, but rarely surprising. Seeing Josh's simple honesty, his focus, his warmth, reminded her of the emotional connection she had been craving. She found herself noticing him more as laughter in the kitchen, the way he helped around the house without being asked, the small, thoughtful gestures that showed he cared. And yet, she was careful, keeping a respectful distance, reminding herself constantly that he was her stepson and that her role was to guide, not to indulge these confusing feelings. Still, every time she passed the guest room, she felt a flutter of curiosity and longing. The slightly open door became a symbol, not of anything forbidden, but of the unexpected moments in life that caught her off guard. That door had revealed something deeper about herself and emotional hunger she hadn't acknowledged, a need for connection that wasn't being met elsewhere. One evening, she lingered by the doorway again, watching him sketch. He was humming softly, lost in his own world. She wanted to step forward to say something meaningful, but she didn't. Instead, she allowed herself to simply observe, to feel the quiet stirrings of her heart without acting on them. It was painful and sweet all at once. The subtle tension in her chest grew. A reminder that life was unpredictable, that love and longing could arrive in moments she hadn't planned for. She knew she had to tread carefully. She couldn't let these feelings disrupt her family or her marriage. Yet she also couldn't ignore them, couldn't pretend that the warmth she felt when looking at Josh wasn't real. That night, as she lay in bed, Anna replayed the scene in her mind. The open door, the soft glow of the lamp, the quiet focus in Josh's eyes. It was a memory that refused to fade. She wondered what Mark would say if he knew, and immediately chastised herself for the thought. But she couldn't help it. Her heart had been nudged awake, gently, unexpectedly, by someone she hadn't anticipated feeling so drawn to. And in that quiet reflection, she realized something vital. Life didn't always wait for convenience or clarity. Sometimes it presented moments of truth in small, fleeting ways, and the heart was forced to notice. Whether she wanted to or not, Anna didn't know what the future would hold. She didn't know how to navigate the feelings that had surfaced. All she knew was that something had changed. Something quiet, tender, and unsettling had shifted in the rhythm of her life. And whether she liked it or not, she was awake now to a part of herself she had been ignoring for far too long. She drifted off to sleep that night with the rain still falling outside, her mind and heart tangled with unspoken questions. The door had been left ajar, literally and metaphorically, and she had stepped inside. Nothing else had happened, yet everything had changed. And somewhere deep down, Anna knew that the next time the door opened, her life might never feel the same again. The days after that rainy evening felt different for Anna. She went through her usual routines work, household chores, preparing dinner, but something had shifted inside her. The memory of Josh in the guest room, focused and unguarded, lingered in her mind like a quiet echo she couldn't ignore. It wasn't inappropriate, at least not in her conscious mind. It was this simple human longing for connection. For someone to truly see her beyond the roles she had been playing for years, she noticed Josh in subtle ways now. The way he hummed while doing his homework, the slight tilt of his head when he concentrated. The little thoughtful gestures he made without realizing she was watching. It was almost painful to see him so carefree, so full of life. While she felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders, her marriage with Mark had become routine, predictable, and comfortable in many ways. But it lacked the spark of true emotional intimacy she was now recognizing in Josh. One afternoon, the rain began again, tapping softly against the windows. Anna had decided to stay home, hoping for a quiet moment to organize her thoughts. She found herself in the guest room under the pretense of looking for a book. Josh was there, headphones on, lost in his own world. The soft light from the desk lamp highlighted the curve of his jaw, the focus in his eyes, the subtle movement of his fingers as they traced lines across the page. Anna's chest tightened unexpectedly. She hadn't intended to feel this drawn to him, yet here she was, silently observing, letting herself feel. "You know," Josh said suddenly, pulling off his headphones and startling her slightly, "I never really noticed how complicated things can get in a blended family until now." Anna's heart jumped. She could feel the weight of the words, the quiet honesty in his voice. It wasn't a complaint. It was a simple recognition of reality. She nodded, unsure what to say, aware of the charged silence that hung between them. "It's nice," though he continued, "having someone who actually sees you, you know?" Anna swallowed hard. She did know. That was exactly what she had been craving for months. Maybe even years of connection that went beyond politeness or obligation, something that touched the heart. She wanted to reach out, to respond with more than a nod, but the words stuck somewhere between her throat and her chest. I know exactly what you mean," she murmured, her voice soft. The warmth in her tone was unintentional but genuine. For a moment the world outside the window, the rain, the quiet hum of the house seemed to disappear. There was only this shared understanding, this fragile, emotional connection that neither of them fully comprehended yet. They sat in quiet for a while, talking about small things at first school, homework, sketches, the weather. But there was an unspoken current running beneath the conversation, something that made every glance and every small smile feel heavier, more meaningful. Anna realized she was noticing details she hadn't before. The way Josh's hair fell across his forehead, the way his fingers moved when he sketched, the calmness in his voice that seemed to draw her in as the days passed. Anna found herself looking forward to these moments, brief as they were. She never lingered too long, always careful to maintain boundaries. But the magnetic pull of emotional closeness was hard to ignore. She started noticing little things about herself, too, how lonely she had been in her marriage, how starved she felt for someone who could understand her without judgment, how hungry she was for genuine human connection. One evening, she came home to find Josh sitting by the window, reading a book he had borrowed from the library. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried the scent of wet earth and the softness of fading clouds. She paused at the doorway, observing him quietly, feeling a gentle ache in her chest. He looked up and smiled, not in a teasing way, but in a warm, open manner that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. "Hey," he said softly, marking his place in the book. "You're home early again." Anna smiled. "I thought I'd check on you," she replied. She tried to keep her tone casual, but there was a softness there that surprised even her Dot. Josh shrugged, a small grin on his face. "I don't mind. It's nice, actually. You make the house feel lighter, I guess." Her chest warmed at his words. It wasn't a declaration of love, not even close, but it was acknowledgement, recognition. A moment where someone appreciated her presence in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. She nodded, smiling softly, feeling her heart respond to the subtle, unspoken intimacy of the moment. Over the next few weeks, their interactions became a delicate rhythm. They would find each other in small moments, Anna helping Josh with a project, Josh sharing a joke while they washed dishes, a shared glance over breakfast that lingered just a second too long. Each moment carried a quiet tension, a gentle pull of attraction that wasn't physical but emotional. It was about longing, about connection, about the human need to be seen and understood. Anna found herself reflecting on her marriage more often. Mark was a good man, kind and dependable, but the spark had faded over time. She loved him in a familiar, comfortable way. But she realized she had been missing passion, emotional intensity, and spontaneity. Josh's presence reminded her of all those things, not in a way that was meant to harm, but in a way that illuminated what she had been missing. One rainy afternoon, Anna found herself in the guest room again, watching Josh sketch. He was humming softly, lost in his own world. She wanted to speak, to say something meaningful, but she didn't. Instead, she allowed herself to simply observe, to feel the quiet stirrings of her heart without acting on them. It was both painful and beautiful, a mixture of longing and restraint. You know, Josh said after a moment, looking up from his sketch pad. Sometimes I feel like no one really understands me. But when you're around, it feels different. Anna's heart tightened. She wanted to tell him that she felt the same way, that his presence had awakened something inside her she hadn't acknowledged. But she didn't. Instead, she nodded, her eyes meeting his in a silent agreement, a quiet understanding that spoke louder than words. They sat in that soft, unspoken space for a long time, sharing the quiet company of each other's presence. No one spoke of boundaries, of right or wrong, or of the future. There was only the present, the shared emotional intimacy that had grown between them. It wasn't physical, but it was profound. It was longing recognition, and the tender ache of a heart awakening after years of quiet. Resignation. Evenings became the hardest for Anna. She would lie awake in bed, replaying their small encounters in her mind. The soft smiles, the shared laughter, the brief touches on a notebook or a pen, all of it lingered like a quiet flame inside her. She knew she had to be careful to respect the boundaries of her blended family. But at the same time, she couldn't deny the emotional bond that was forming. It was natural, human, and impossible to ignore. One night, as she passed the guest room on her way to the kitchen, she found Josh sitting quietly by the window, staring out at the stars peeking through the clouds. He didn't look at her, but she felt drawn to him. Something in his posture, in his quiet reflection, mirrored her own emotions, longing, curiosity, and a gentle, unspoken desire for connection. She lingered at the doorway, debating whether to leave or to speak. Finally, she simply smiled and whispered good night before retreating to her own room. But the memory of that moment stayed with her, echoing in her heart, making her realize how deeply she had become emotionally involved in the following days. Anna found herself more attuned to the subtleties of Josh's presence. A laugh, a glance, a shared joke each moment held weight. She caught herself thinking of him at work, during errands, even while cooking. The pull of their emotional connection was growing stronger. Gentle but impossible to ignore. And yet she never crossed the line. She maintained respect for boundaries, careful to separate longing from action. But the emotional intimacy had taken root, planting a seed that neither of them could ignore. It was quiet, subtle, and yet powerful, a bond born from shared understanding, tender attention, and the human need to feel seen. One evening, Anna sat alone in the living room, the house quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. She thought about the moments that had passed, the connection that had grown between her and Josh, and the delicate line she was walking. She realized that life was unpredictable. Emotions didn't follow rules, and hearts didn't always listen to reason. What mattered was the honesty of feeling, the acknowledgement of longing, and the quiet moments that revealed what truly mattered to the soul. That night, she lay awake thinking of Josh, of the gentle tension between them, and of the open door that had started it all. She knew that life had shifted, subtly but undeniably. Nothing had changed in the physical world. Mark was still her husband. Josh was still her stepson, but inside her heart, a quiet revolution had begun. Anna understood that navigating this path required care, respect, and honesty with herself. She couldn't act recklessly, couldn't betray the trust of her family. But she also couldn't deny the emotional awakening that had taken root. The longing, the connection, the quiet intensity, they were real, undeniable. and impossible to ignore, and as she closed her eyes that night, listening to the distant patter of rain returning to the city, Anna realized something profound. The heart doesn't wait for convenience, clarity, or approval.